please, at Waverley, Waitrose, just make sure that you know where your nearest exit is. Councillors, can you just check your phones, and members of the public, check your phones, make sure they're either off or on silent. And councillors, please make sure your cards are firmly into the console so that you can be heard on the webcast. Members of the public, just a reminder that this is not a public meeting, it's a meeting in public. We welcome public speaking at the allotted time, but apart from that, we'd ask you please not to take part in the debate. Can I just, before we get on, introduce the officers? I forgot to get one to turn. Thank you very much indeed, but we have an array of officers tonight, so I'll start over with Lewis Jones from the legal team, Steve Weaver, our interim development manager, development control manager, Louise Jandel, the area team leader for Western and Southern area, Kaylee Taylor, who is the planning officer dealing with planning application tonight, as is Jane McMullen. I don't know whether you all know Jane, but you will after tonight. And we're also joined this evening by Richard Homewood, who is Waverley's Head of Environmental Services, in case any matters arise that we could deal with his expertise to help us solve. So can we now move straight on to the matters of business? The minutes of the last meeting have been laid on the table for the required amount of time. Is it your wish that I sign them at the end of the meeting?
Agreed.
Thank you. Apologies for absence, Emma.
We have apologies from John Fraser, Julia Potts and Martin Lear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest, Emma?
None before the meeting.
We take it as read that any town councillors who are involved with the town council planning group have declared a general meeting, a general interest. Any questions from the members of the public, Emma?
None received.
Which takes us on to item 5. Steve, any relevant updates that you'd like to share with us?
Thank you, Chairman and councillors. Good evening. Well, yes, the most significant update in terms of legislation policy affecting us, of course, is the adoption of the local plan. A milestone for Waverley, the adoption of Part 1, and reflects a great deal of work on your part and officers' parts as well. The reports you've got before you in your agenda this evening were prepared and published prior to the adoption of the local plan, so you will still see in the text reference to the draft local plan Part 1. That's now, of course, the adopted local plan Part 1, and the policies within that now have full weight. And there are also references to the saved policies of the local plan from 2002. Those now should be referred to as retained policies, and they will have a degree of weight dependent on their conformity with the MPPF. If there are any significant issues which change the balance in terms of the recommendations before you this evening, the reporting officers will set that out. And obviously going forwards, we'll be able to write our reports on the basis of the adopted local plan and not straddling this boundary between pre-adoption and post-adoption. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Steve. And of course, this should be the last time that we have this situation, because from now on, the planning documents will all be written with the adopted local plan in place. What about our performance against government targets? That's you again, Steve.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Members, if I can take you to page 5 of your agenda papers, you'll recall this is now a standing item at committee meetings. Last time we discussed this, we had the current year figures running to the end of December last year, and now we've updated those to reflect the data to the end of January. If I take you first to the planning service performance on speed, you'll see from the majors list that current year performance is excellent. It is slightly up on last year, but that itself was excellent, running at 98.18%. That's a very slight uplift on the end of December position. So we're maintaining a very healthy level of performance there. And on the non-majors, again, excellent performance, 98.47% of all applications dealt with in time against a government target of 70% or more. So again, very healthy position, and again, slightly up on the position at the end of December. So all very healthy and good news to report. Obviously, it's the performance data on quality, so that's the proportion of appeals that are allowed in respect of major and non-major applications across them as a whole. The non-major position you can see is still a healthy one, and I wouldn't expect that to change. We have a great deal of non-major decisions that go out of the building. Relatively few of them get appealed, and therefore still less are allowed. On the major application side of things, we have revised the figures to reflect the position whereby since the end of December, we've had 2 further major appeals that have been allowed. So whereas in relation to the last assessment period, that was reported at 6.4% last time we met, it's now up at 8%. That said, whilst the government haven't confirmed to us that they've guillotined the period because we've still got these outstanding appeals. They haven't told us they're going to guillotine the period and therefore ignore decisions that haven't come in yet. They have gone ahead and designated the authorities that are in special measures, and we are not one of those. So that would kind of imply, from my point of view, that maybe that guillotine has taken place. What we also don't have yet is the government position as regards the next assessment period. So on the best estimate row of that table, all that is looking at is raw data in terms of how many major applications have we determined and how many major appeals have been allowed, but they're not comparable data. They're not the appeals allowed on the cases. They're just how many cases we approved this year, how many appeal decisions have we had this year. That's running relatively high, but as I say, that's not a figure that we're necessarily going to have to report back to central government because we don't know what the next assessment period is. Going forwards, with a local plan in place, we sincerely hope that will put us in a stronger footing when it comes to determining appeals. And certainly we have a number of appeals outstanding at the moment where the inspectorate have been advised of the adoption of the local plan, which will strengthen our case, we believe, but obviously we'll be reporting that back to you when those appeal decisions start coming through. So that's really all I had to say on that, Chairman. If there's any points of detail on any individual cases, happy to take that offline. Thank you.
Thank you. With the weather and everything else, I'd rather this didn't turn into a long debate, but I know it's the sort of topic that we could debate endlessly. So could I ask, please, that we don't discuss this in much detail tonight? By all means, ask Steve one question. If you have a burning one, other than that, take it, please, offline, and we'll get into the habit. Depending on the length of the agenda, then we can see how much time we have available for other discussions. But it's always an interesting topic, isn't it? Can we move straight on then to the business of the meeting? Should we need any site inspections, they will be on Tuesday the 20th of March at a time to be agreed. So can we move straight on to our first application, application A1, which is subject to public speaking. This is the Waverley Arms Public House, Waverley Lane, Farnham. It's a change of use from the public house to a children's day nursery. Application number WA 2017-0823. And it's Kayleigh, please. Kayleigh Taylor, who's going to introduce this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This application has been brought before the Area Committee at the request of a local member. The application site, outlined in red, is a corner plot at the junction of Tilford Road and Waverley Lane, opposite the Farnham train station. The application site comprises a vacant public house, which is a building of local merit. These photographs show the existing frontage of the site. There is currently parking provision access from Tilford Road, shown in photograph A. Photos A and B on this slide show the views from inside the site, showing the single-storey lean-to on the rear elevation and the pub garden. Photograph C shows the existing boundary treatment along Waverley Lane. This application seeks permission for the change of use of the site from a public house to a children's day nursery. The existing access from Tilford Road would be closed off with 1.8 metre chain link fencing with planting either side, and a new access with parking provision would be provided from Waverley Lane. The land to the rear of the site would be regraded and play space would be provided here. A 2-storey rear extension would be erected with a footbridge linking it to the car park. This slide shows the existing and proposed ground floor plans. The extension can be seen here. You can see the siting of air conditioning units on the proposed rear elevation just here. And this slide shows the existing and proposed first floor plans, again showing the extension just here. You can also see the footbridge to the car park here. There are no alterations proposed to the western elevation which fronts the junction. This slide shows a comparison between the existing and proposed northeastern elevation. The 2-storey rear extension can be seen here, with the footbridge just here. The 2-storey rear extension can be seen here, and alterations can also be seen on the southwestern elevation. This slide shows the rear elevation. You can see the rear extension would have a double gable roof design to match the existing building, just here, and a flat roof design just here. The air conditioning units can be seen just here, and the footbridge would be just positioned here. The matters of principal and technical judgment are air quality issues. The application has been considered by the Council's Environmental Services team, who have raised no objection to the application. Conditions have been recommended to secure landscaping and mechanical ventilation. The impact on highways. The County Highway Authority has raised no objection to the application. It is considered that the proposed access would accord with the current highway technical standards and would replace an existing substandard access. The proposed use is not considered to have a severe impact on the congestion of the local highway network. Effect on the SPAs. The proposal is not likely to increase the number of people permanently residing at the site. As such, no objection is raised on the impact on the SPAs. The impact on the ancient woodland and trees. The Council's tree officer has considered the proposal and suggests that there would not be any trees of significant amenity value affected by the proposal. The matters of planning judgment, which councillors are asked to consider this evening, are the change of use of the land. There are numerous alternative public houses within reasonable proximity to the application site. Therefore, it's considered that the proposal would not result in an under-provision of similar services within the area. Whilst the proposal seeks a change of use to a children's day nursery, it would remain a community facility. Officers therefore consider that the proposed change of use would accord with the local plan policies and the Farnham Neighbourhood Plan. The impact on visual amenity and the building of local merit. The Council's Heritage Officer considers that the proposal would not result in material harm or loss of significance to the non-designated heritage asset. It is also considered that the proposal would not detract from the character of the area. Impact on residential amenity. Officers are satisfied that there will be no material harm to neighbouring occupiers by way of loss of light, overbearing impact, or overlooking. A condition is recommended requiring the development to be carried out in accordance with the submitted noise impact assessment to mitigate harm to neighbouring occupiers by way of noise. Please can I turn members' attention to the update sheet. Since the preparation of the agenda, the Council has adopted the Waverley Borough Local Plan Part 1. As such, full weight can be given to the policies contained within this plan. Certain policies of the 2002 local plan have not been retained and therefore no longer given weight in the assessment of this application. This does not alter the overall conclusions of the report or the officer recommendation. However, the reasoning for conditions has been amended accordingly. 11 additional representations have been received on air quality, noise and highways grounds. These have already been addressed in the officer report. The recommendation is that permission be granted as set out on page 5 of the update sheet. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Kayleigh. As I say, this application is subject to public speaking, so could I ask, please, the objectors, Sophie Lovell and Catherine Powell, to come forward, please. You have 4 minutes between you. I'm sure you know the rules, but your time will not start until you press the button and started yourself. And it'll be 4 minutes for you both.
My name is Sophia Lovell. I am the chairman of the South Farnham Residents Association. Local people are shocked that officers are recommending approval for the change of use of the Waverley Arms to a day nursery, given the following insurmountable problems with that decision. The traffic congestion at this location is locally notorious, as is the debate regarding the pollution impact and the cumulative effect on vulnerable members of the community. Both elements will be increased due to the proposed new train service to Guildford from Farnham. Barriers at the station level crossing are down for approximately 15 minutes an hour, causing long queues of stationary traffic. This will almost double to around 26 minutes an hour with the new service. Existing signs asking motorists to turn off their engines are ignored now. Residents on the south side of Waverley Lane are often blocked from using their driveways due to queuing traffic. Access to the 15 parking spaces proposed will be extremely difficult at peak times, adding to the current problem of traffic queuing over the level crossing. Children will need to be escorted to the nursery. Those parents will need to find parking spaces and will have to compete with the business at Sugarcraft, shoppers who park and walk into Farnham, and parents taking children to St Polycarp's School. The proposed play area is far too small for such a location. Good outside play space being an important element for the health and well-being of children. Local knowledge is important in decision-making for any such proposal, and residents would have welcomed discussion with officers during the site visit. The proposal is inappropriate for this site and would be better served by a change of use to housing, where adults can make the choice whether or not they live there with all of the existing constraints. Committee, councillors, you are the decision makers in this and no one else. I hope you will have the foresight to refuse this application.
My name is Catherine Powell and I'm a Farnham resident, and I have been working with the community on environmental issues on a voluntary basis for the last few years. All of the reports that have been written on the Waverley Arms are based on data from 2014 or longer ago, and we are now in 2018. Yesterday, I received data, courtesy of Waverley Borough Council, for 2007 for October, November and December. This shows significant increases in the unbiased corrected data, both on a month-by-month basis and an average basis. There are significant increases, and they are different to those that are reported in the ADM report, which clearly states there is a downward trend. The data presented yesterday shows a very significant upward trend. There are many changes that will take place over the coming years that will lead to the pollution levels in this area increasing rather than decreasing. The trains, as Sophia has already mentioned, but also local developments that have already been approved and those that are in the stages of being approved, and those outside of Farnham, notably those which will impact on the traffic across the crossing. Whilst a working group has been set up to try to address the air quality issues in Farnham and Waverley, they will not act fast enough to impact on this development. I therefore hope the committee will see the wisdom of refusing this application.
Thank you, Mrs Lovell and Mrs Powell. I could now ask, please, the supporters of the scheme to come forward. Carolyn Apcar and David Harvey, please. The same applies to you. You have 4 minutes between you, and it won't start until you press the button and speak your first word.
Thank you, Chair. My name is David Harvey. I'm a Fellow of the Institute of Air Quality Management and have been advising the applicant on air quality. Following the alarmist comments made by the now discredited former Environmental Health Officer, I undertook a comprehensive review and determined that the air quality in the vicinity of the nursery meets the air quality strategy objectives and EU legal limits which are set to protect the most vulnerable, for example, children with asthma. Even though there is no evidence of exceedances, the development includes mitigation in the form of mechanical ventilation and an extra thick hedge to trap particulate matter. The findings of my report were accepted by Waverley, who then commissioned highly regarded consultants Amick Foster Wheeler to review the air quality. They state concentrations at the proposed development site are likely to be below 40 micrograms per cubic metre, and there's a long-term trend of reducing NO2 concentrations, and conclude that it would not be reasonable to oppose the proposed development on air quality grounds. Waverley recently completed the recommendation made by AMIC to monitor at the development site for a 3-month period. This monitoring shows that the 3-month average unadjusted concentration of NO2 at the site is 31 micrograms per cubic metre. This is comfortably less than the objective and about 50% of the concentration in central Farnham. There are therefore no grounds to delay this application for more data to be available, as there is sufficient data currently available to be confident that the air quality at the site is acceptable. And to answer a question that often gets asked, yes, I would be happy for my granddaughter to attend the nursery there, and I have no concerns about her, and I would have no concerns about her exposure to prevailing air quality. Thank you, Chair.
My name's Carolyn Apcar. I'm the applicant's planning consultant. The other main issue of concern to local residents has been on traffic and parking matters. The proposals provide a new safe access to a 15-space car park. Unlike schools, day nurseries do not have set hours. Children arrive and depart over 2 to 3 hour periods. Parking accumulation surveys prove that the number of parking spaces on site is more than sufficient. The existing unsafe access will be permanently stopped up. The new access is intentionally located on Waverley Lane so as not to interfere with or be affected by the level crossing. Data demonstrates that the proposals will have no adverse effect on the free flow of traffic or highway safety. The site has good pedestrian and cycle access and is well located for public transport. The County Council, the Highways Authority, have visited the site on 2 morning peak hour occasions and are satisfied with all traffic and parking related aspects. The noise survey that's been submitted demonstrates that the proposals will comply with relevant standards. Potential noise sources, that's children, plant and cars, will be below existing traffic noise levels and therefore not harm the amenities of neighbours. Assessments on air quality, traffic and parking and noise are based on fact. They are not subjective matters. Your officers and the relevant consultees have confirmed that they are happy that the facts demonstrate that the proposals are acceptable. Regarding the principle of the change of use, the pub has not operated successfully for the last 10 years or so. There are other pubs easily accessible and the proposals replace one community facility with another. Planning applications must be determined on the basis of policy. Your officers have confirmed that in all respects the proposals comply with relevant policies. For these reasons, we trust that you will be following your officers' very clear recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on your timing. That was perfect, almost. Well done. Right, members. I do have Councillor Story, but I think we always defer to the local member. So, Councillor Hargreaves, was this a point of order, Councillor Story?
I just wanted to point out at the time that the photographs and the plan showing which the photographs were have an error.
Are you going to complete that now? What is that error? Oh, I see.
I think this C down here, apologies, that should be an A. Apologies if that was confusing for you.
Okay.
I hope you feel confident enough to carry on with the application now, Councillor Story. Councillor Hargreaves, I take it you would like to kick us off on this one.
Well, Madam Chairman, I really don't know where to begin. The whole thing appalls me. Firstly, I would like to say that the pub has been like that for many, many years, and no pub has existed there for a variety of reasons, and it needs to be replaced by something, but not by a school for children, small children at that, at one of the most dangerous points in our town of Farnham. I've lived in Farnham, 2 streets away from that pub for 40 years. I arrived in 1978, and the traffic was, compared to today, so different you wouldn't think it was Farnham. Queuing at the railway crossing, there were probably 2 cars either side when the railway lines came down, and that was all. And about half a dozen when it was peak time. Now we are 40 years later, masses more buildings, masses more businesses, masses more cars, lorries. I just don't think Surrey Highways actually arrived at the right time. You know, maybe there are overnight or weekends, but I am talking Monday to Friday, when everybody is going up to London, catching the train, going into the cars. Can I just reiterate, which Mrs. Lovell said, during peak time periods, that level crossing caused mayhem. The cars are stacked up right the other side to the bypass. The cars are stacked up Waverley Lane to St Polycarp's, Tilford Road to Morley Road, and all the other roads round it. Think of all the cars spewing out all that contamination. It can't be right. It's illogical. It's dangerous too. And on the subject of air quality, again, having said all the cars, lorries that go there, of course the air quality is increased. I cannot believe that it's acceptable for young children to breathe in that air. It just can't be. And as for the parking, children's parents would have to park somewhere. And backwards and forwards during the day will cause congestions the whole time. You wouldn't be able to get onto Tilford Road in order to go over the traffic lights. And the near misses that I've actually seen are horrific. I go there every day of my life. This is something I feel so strongly. I really do not feel that a nursery is appropriate for this place. It could be wonderful somewhere else, but not here. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hargreaves. Councillor Frost?
I wasn't expecting to go yet. Thank you. Well, this junction is one of the busiest junctions in Farnham. It always has been, and it's got worse as time has gone on. It is also part of a road traffic scheme, parking scheme, which was designed by the County Council because of the congestion and the problems faced by the residents there. It was very kind of the applicant to point out this committee's responsibilities, but let me assure them, that we do know what our responsibilities are, and we do know this area, but then again, we are not the applicant. We are just trying to make a judgment as to whether we believe this is the right place for a children's nursery. Personally, it is not, for a number of reasons, one of which is I think the site is too small for a children's nursery. I do not believe that with 80 children coming to and froing during the day, 14 staff, that in fact there are enough car parking spaces provided on site. I do not believe the garden space, the outside space, is sufficient for 80 children to get fresh air during the day. If the fresh air consists of being taken along Waverley Lane or Tilford Road or across the crossing, that's not going to be fresh air either. So quite frankly, I am rather surprised at the officers coming forward with a granting for this particular site, and do wonder whether in fact they went and had a look at the site during the particularly bad periods of the traffic. I don't think it's suitable. I would not be supporting this application, and it's for a number of reasons, not just air quality. There are a whole load of reasons why this is unsuitable for a nursery. Houses, flats, possibly, but certainly not a children's nursery. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Frost. Anybody else wish to add anything? Right. Oh, gosh. Plethora of hands here. Who went slightly fifth? Right, we'll go Councillor Ward, Councillor MacLeod, and then Councillor Nazir later. So Councillor Ward first, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's actually just a couple of queries or points. We keep hearing, and I keep reading in this wonderful little machine we've been given, about loads of other pubs within easy access. Could one of the officers please tell me which they are? Because I haven't managed to find too many, and I'm quite good at finding pubs. And I also see a comment that the exit and entrance to this place has been moved to Waverley Lane to avoid the crossing. I fail to understand what that means. I mean, the crossing's right there, and whether it's coming out the right or left side of that box is totally immaterial. I find that statement weird and peculiar. But could someone tell me about these nearby pubs, please, because I may wish to visit them.
Who knows about the pubs in Farnham? That's the Mulberry, of course. Sorry, Kaylee, I thought somebody was going to list the pubs for us. Yes, have you got your pens out, councillors?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so there is the Mulberry just opposite the train tracks, and also the site is within a short walking distance into the town centre, where there is a wide range of eating establishments and drinking establishments. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, Councillor MacLeod.
Thank you, Chairman. I broadly agree with what my colleagues have already said, but I'd like to add one or two more points. First of all, it says somewhere in the report that there's a shortage, or it implies there's a shortage of nurseries in Farnham. It doesn't seem to be. If you look up on Google, there's a whole load of nurseries. I've got 2 young grandchildren, and I live pretty close to this area, probably about 7 or 8 minutes walk away from the pub. I've got 2 young grandchildren, and they go to a nursery locally called Starfish, near to the Sixth Form College. And we had no trouble getting them into that nursery, and we had no trouble getting them into a second nursery in the Bourne. So I'm not actually sure there's this stated need for additional nursery places. In terms of whether it's an appropriate place for a nursery, I totally agree with my colleagues. Mr Harvey said he would be happy to have his grandchildren go to this nursery. Well, I've got 2 young grandchildren, 5-year-old, who have just started normal school, but they've been in nursery before for 5 years. And this is the last place I would allow my grandchildren, if it was up to me. It's actually up to my daughter, but in terms of whether I could influence it, there's the last place I would want them to go, for several reasons. There's all this uncertainty about air pollution. Mr Harvey said that the long-term trend is low. But I was at a meeting, the same meeting that Mrs Powell was at yesterday, where Mr Homewood provided with some figures which seem to say exactly the opposite. That the latest figures actually show that the long-term trend is upwards. at the 2 monitoring points nearest to the location. And I don't accept this business that it was said in the Foster Wheeler report. It implied that there's only one train an hour, or one service an hour to Guildford. In fact, there's going to be 2. That was actually corrected in the update report. And I think the officers have commented in their comments that we can't take that into account. But we often actually take things into account in the future. But we're always talking about the amount of weight that we can give to things, the amount of weight to the half-approved local plan and so on. Now, we know this additional train service to Guildford is going to actually happen. It's going to happen this December. It was part of the proposal that this particular railway company made to win the franchise. So the amount of times the barriers are going to be down, as Mrs. Lovell said, is going to double. Now, it said something in the Foster Wheeler report that this had the potential to increase pollutions in the proposed development. But if the barriers down for double the time, and there's double the queuing, it's not potential. It will actually double the amount of pollution at that area. And we're talking about the health of children here. We really shouldn't be exposing the children in this location to this level of air pollution and this increased level of air pollution. The other thing that really concerns me about this location is the parking issue. I presume that the parking shown, the 15 spaces, are actually for the staff. I think we're told there's going to be 14 staff. So where are the actual 80 parents going to park that are going to be bringing the children to and from this nursery? There's nowhere near this location to park at all. There's no public parking places near the location. They're going to have to park several hundred yards away up Broomleaks Road or somewhere like that if they can find a parking space at all. So that's going to be totally unsatisfactory. There doesn't appear to be any drop-off point in the site, and the structure of the site, the way the parking is shown, it just wouldn't work. The parking is clearly just for the staff. So I just don't see how the dropping off and picking up is going to work. And I've got experience of dropping off and picking up my own grandchildren, and the parents tend to come along at the same time. You go along to the nursery to drop children off about 9 o'clock. That's when all the parents come to drop them off. And around 5:30 to 6 o'clock, that's when they pick them up. So we're going to have these 80 or so parents coming along in the morning. Okay, there'll be a few that might be outside the peak times, and they'll be competing with the school traffic at Polycarps and other local schools, and also with commuters. So I really don't see how this dropping off and picking up is going to work. Last point I'd like to comment is noise. When you go along to one of these children's nurseries, as I've done, when the children are playing outside, it's just tremendously noisy. And 80 children make an enormous amount of noise. And I really feel for the local residents who are going to be living near to this nursery. It's a very small play area, and you're going to have a great deal of concentrated noise. So there are all sorts of reasons why I think this application is totally unsuitable, and I'll certainly be voting against it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We're getting a little bit repetitive, so if we could just speed up as the weather's not getting any better. Councillor Nazir.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. 2 simple points. As all my colleagues have repeated, the parking area. Not only the parking area, it's the kids. I mean, when the parents are picking, I'm one parent as well from Farnham, they're driving fast, and it's going to be a hazard for the cars which are coming in and the rush hour as well. So they're bound to have some kind of accidents over there if you foresee that, because there'll be cars coming fast, which I've seen. I've walked over there today. If I could see any points, plus points to go there, I don't see a single one. So I'm not going to recommend this application either.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And Councillor Isherwood, and then perhaps we could take the officers' comments and move to the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Joan. just remember going back to the Farnham Hospital application and the nursery site there, we insisted on, and we refused it the first time, we insisted on an area in the car park for parents or guardians to drop their young children off and walk them in or carry them into the nursery. That was something that is certainly not possible on this site because most of that car park will be taken up by staff members, up to 14 staff on duty at any one time for the 80 kids. I also find the amenity area, the play area, rather inadequate in size for that number of young people. I don't think a laurel hedge is going to really improve air quality, particle-wise, or anything else. I just don't see it as the right place for a nursery school. We've talked about the traffic. We know that it backs up when the gates are down, not only up East Street, but into the Borough, the whole lot. I used to live in Farnham. I used to take my daughter to school, and we used to go from Crooksbury Road through Waverley Abbey and that way because my young daughter didn't want to be late for school, and going across the level crossing, that was a sure way of doing it. And that's some time ago, as Councillor Hargreave just reminded me. So thank you very much. I'm sorry to have repeated yet again, Chairman.
You're forgiven. Does anybody else wish to make a last point, or can we move over to the officers and on to the recommendation? Officers, do you wish to come back on any of the points?
Thank you. Both of the issues that members seem to be picking up on are sort of technical issues. Firstly, I would like to point out that in relation to the traffic and highways considerations that have been raised, the expert County Highway Authority has made an assessment of the proposal. They are satisfied that the new access would be an improvement over the existing access to the site. The level of car parking is sufficient, and that the proposal would have an acceptable impact on the surrounding highway network. The other issue that members seem to have been concerned about is in relation to air quality, and I would just ask if Richard Homewood could make a brief comment about the air quality issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Chair. The air quality issues have been raised as of concern, certainly, and the Council engaged independent consultants to take a view on the objections around air quality, and you'll have seen in the report that the view of our consultants was that there were no grounds to object in relation to air quality, to object to the application. It is true to say that the application was based on 2014 air quality data, and it's true to say that certainly at the monitoring site nearest to the school, the proposed school or nursery, there was a downward trend in readings between 2012 and 2014. The most recent readings we've got are the ones we released yesterday to both the applicant and the objectors to the application, and they do show an increase at the monitoring point nearest to the school. There are two issues with that. Firstly, these latest results are from a new laboratory, so they're not directly comparable with the previous results, and equally the monitoring position has moved, and we've been back to our consultants, and they do make the point that if you move a monitoring point from one side of the road to the other, it will have an impact on the readings as well. Having said that, whilst there is an increase in the levels, it is still below the threshold of 40 micrograms per cubic metre. It is not really appropriate to average 3 months. You should have a 12-month set of readings to create averages, but even if you do it with the 3 months, it is 31 and the limit is 40. So on that basis, even though there is a general increase in pollution levels shown by the latest results, it doesn't suggest that at this location it will exceed the limit in the immediate future. Thank you, Chair. Right,
thank you, officers. As somebody who equally lives in in the town with children, grandchildren, everything else. I take what you say about the technical advice. I just cannot believe it, and I don't think anybody who lives in Farnham can possibly believe it. And, you know, instinctively, I think we all feel that this is an unsuitable site. And I would be very grateful if you could give us some grounds. Could we have the slide up? The grounds, you know, the points for debate, so that we can actually see some of the matters of judgment. Yeah, sorry, that was the other question. You mentioned parking. Is that really a Surrey issue? I mean, can we not turn it down on inadequate parking?
The impact of the level of parking has been looked at from Surrey. So it is very difficult to turn something down on a lack of parking when the expert highway authority have indicated that they don't consider that the level of parking would have a severe impact on the surrounding highway network, which is the test, and you would be going against the expert view of the County Highway Authority. Thank you.
Right, members, I really don't want to prolong this. It's snowing already and we've got another application, so unless there's something really pressing, I would like to move to the recommendation. So the recommendation, as you can see on your update sheet, thank you very much, that permission be granted subject to the amended conditions 7 to 14, which are on the update sheet, and conditions 1 to 6 and 15 to 19 in the agenda report, and informatives 1 to 4. Could I see all those, please, in favour of granting permission?
None.
Can I go on? I'm only asking Emma because last time it was unanimous at Sutton and she still wanted me to ask anybody who was against it and abstentions, but that's unanimous. So could I have an alternative recommendation, please? Just a recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Frost.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, that the item be refused.
Can I just ask for a seconder and then I'll come back for your points? Thank you, Councillor Story.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Frost.
My problem about giving you the reasons is because with the new local plan, I don't know if some of the things I'm going to say are part of the new plan or the old plan. But I do think that what they want to put on this site is overdevelopment of the site. It's too big for what it is. And I do believe that the on-site parking is too little. I'm not talking about the Surrey responsibility of off-street parking, and they nowhere seem to have made the point that they've put a parking scheme in there because of the problems about parking in that area. So the on-site parking, I believe to be inadequate. And that's as far as I've got at the moment, because I can't remember how it's going to be impacted by the new local plan we agreed last week.
Thank you, Councillor Floss. Can we object on the grounds of overdevelopment of the site, not enough amenity space for the children?
An impact on neighbours?
We haven't got any sort of standards on that, so it would be difficult to object to overdevelopment of the site. Also, overdevelopment site is considered to be quite a broad term, and what you would need to do is identify what the harm is from that in order to articulate a reason for refusal.
I can't believe the outside space conforms to any of the guidance for green spaces. I just don't see it. Councillor Hill, did you wish to come in?
Chairman, I just wanted to raise the change of use from a pub, actually, because, I mean, in my view, having run rival premises for a long time, was that absolutely zero investment went into the Waverley Arms over a long time, and it will actually do very well as a pub, I think, particularly with the 15 parking spaces in the back, which weren't there when it was a pub.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hill. Councillor Frost, did you indicate?
Well, I find it very difficult listening to the officers because they have proposed that this be granted and they really don't want us to refuse it. But as far as I'm concerned, it is overdevelopment. You know, here we have what was a comparatively small pub. You know, having used it in the dim and distant past, it was a small pub. And there's very little garden there. You've got 80 children going in. And in our judgment, as the people having to make a judgment on this application, I don't believe it is big enough for this type of thing. I really don't believe it's big enough for children. And we've already heard the head of environmental health say there have been some new figures that show it has exceeded the guidelines. So, sorry guys, but, you know, we're being asked matters of judgment, and I think there is an impact on residential amenity of that area.
Yes, sorry, I agree with you totally, Mrs. Frost. I mean, if these cars are coming and they're not supposed to be going on site because that is for the use of the staff, you know, we are just going to create another problem in an area that is already has trouble with transport. You know, so we are creating real problems for the existing residents by. Yes, Steve's. Right, let's see what Steve's going to say to us.
Thank you, Chairman. I think some of the dilemma that you face hearing us and we face sort of giving advice to you is that some of the areas that you've been talking about this evening are the province of very highly technical analyses and frankly expert advice, things like air quality issues. Now the Highways Authority will have given their advice on the basis of the impact on the capacity of the highway network and whether there would be severe impacts as a result of that. Moving forwards, what I think I'm hearing and emerging from you as a body of members is a concern about the intensity of the use. I've heard reference to the number of children, the limited number of parking spaces, and perhaps your concerns are better framed less as an overdevelopment argument, which is generally about the spread of development across the site, how much built form there is, those sort of concerns. I think it's more about an intensity argument in terms of how many children are there, how many parking spaces are available, how many traffic movements there will therefore be in terms of convenience of road users, convenience of local residents, as opposed to a sort of a more technical highway authority analysis about road capacity. So I think if you're minded to, I'm not necessarily getting a warm reception to this, but I'm trying to be helpful in terms of if you're trying to frame a reason for refusal, I would recommend that you think in terms of intensity of use and those sort of impacts in terms of residual impacts in, as I say, highway movements, convenience of road users, that sort of thing, rather than relying on technical analysis of, for example, air quality, which I wouldn't profess to be an expert in, and that is the difficulty we face trying to advise you.
Yeah, I know masses of people want to come in here. The point we're making is not a technical point. We can all see lines of cars. You know, we don't need a degree in whatever it is to see how many cars there are. I don't actually care how many children are on that site. I think it's an inappropriate site for a nursery, and this is our big issue. You know, I mean, it's, yes, 80 is because it's an inappropriate site, 80 makes it, you know, wildly inappropriate because you get more cars. But, you know, it is such a crowded area of the town. It is notorious. We all avoid it. And we are being asked to give permission to put extra congestion in an already wildly congested area. And that's our big problem. It's not, you know, we just don't see this as a site for a nursery. Mrs. Frost, do come back.
To keep coming back, Madam Chairman, but it seems at the moment that the officers and ourselves just don't agree. It is overdevelopment. They are building on that small site a 2-storey rear extension. So they're taking up more land at the back of it to build this extension. So I just don't understand why the officers are telling me, because I keep going on about it, that it's not overdevelopment. For me, it is overdevelopment. And I can't see it any other way. And we've been asked to make a judgment, and that is our judgment. Sorry, officers, but we're not agreeing with you. You know, and as far as highways is concerned, having been a county councillor and been very involved with highways, their advice is only advisory. They have always told us that. Their advice is advisory. Right, I don't take the advice in this case. They put in a parking scheme because local people could not park. And what will happen is that all the people going to the nursery will park in those spaces that are there for an hour and a half. And that is not what that's why it's not going to be neighbour friendly. Now, I'm sure we need more nurseries, but there has to be a better place to put them than this. So I'm sorry, I will now shut up and go back.
I'll take Councillor Hargreaves before she bursts.
You don't have to be an expert at all. You have to use common sense, for goodness sake. We live in Farnham. Surely to goodness people could listen to us, and I think I'm the nearest to that place anyway. I live in the Fairfield, for your information. I drive past it every single day of my life. I've lived there for 40 years. I've got grandchildren. Do you think I'd ever put them there? Never. It is dangerous from cars, from pollution, and anything else there. I cannot believe you. I just don't understand you. I'm sorry. There must be something very wrong that you really want to put children there at risk. And for cars to drive into them, because children do get loose from their parents and their eagerness to get to school and back. I'm sorry, this is wrong. 100% wrong.
Thank you, Councillor Hargreaves. And I know you did speak to the officers way in advance of this, so you're not coming up with ideas that they haven't heard. Councillor Ward?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, having been on planning committees for 11 years, I've heard the most weird advice out of Highways Department over a number of years. And I'm sorry, I do get a little fed up with the adjective, the expert Highways Department. They're people working in the Highway Department. They might think they're experts, but many of us happen to disagree. They may be highly qualified on bends and exits, but they do not seem to have the same ideas on highways as the rest of us. To avoid using the words parking and whatever, which an inspector may find more difficult, could we perhaps object on the fact that there is an insufficient drop-off facility? I was rather expecting when they opened up that entrance that they would have a drive-through from Waverley Lane going out onto Tilford Road, where people could drive in, drop off their children in safety, and go away. So when they blocked off this, I was amazed. And to be told this is a better entrance than one that was bad really doesn't make it good. It just makes it better than one that was bad. So could we have something like there is an insufficient safe drop-off area for children? Could we have something that there's an insufficient play area for children? And could we have something like neighbourhood amenity will be affected by the noise of children? And frankly, it's an unsafe place to put a children's nursery anyway. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Did Councillor Nessy, did you indicate?
I could not understand. I know the officers have worked hard, but they have to find something. I mean, it's going to be an accident hazard. The speed the cars come over there, we've all lived over here. I've lived over here for 14 years, and I think it's not suitable for not even school. An office with double-story building as well, because it's going to cause extra traffic. As soon as the gates open, everybody starts running with their car full, and they don't even see the people who are walking over there. But my humble request to the officers is to find something, because it's not possible. We all live over there. That's why we feel for it. And we use the station one way or another, even if we have our cars. For some reasons, I would not like a nursery which is going to be a hazard for accidents. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, officers, have we got any grounds that we can use, that we can defend at appeal?
The first reason for refusal that I would recommend based on your comments would be the proposal would have an insufficient safe drop-off facility and as such would result in an inconvenience to surrounding users of the highway network. This would conflict with policy D1 of the Waverley Borough Local Plan 2002. I don't think there's anything in the new local plan that you would be able to use for that particular reason for refusal. The other reason for refusal that I'm hearing from you is in relation to the lack of outdoor space. What I'm finding difficult is to locate a policy that I can hang that particular objection on. I mean, I would suggest something along the lines of the proposal by reason of the lack of outdoor space would be inappropriate for a children's nursery. But I'm struggling to find a policy that we could...
I was thinking unless it was framed in terms of the coming back to your overdevelopment point, in terms of the overdevelopment that the extensions, the parking area and the limited children's outdoor space would amount together to an overdevelopment of the site, which would be an inappropriate design, if I can put it in those terms, because you do have design policies.
Sorry, Councillor Ward, I was trying to find a figure to go with the green space.
Point of information or point of order, whatever it is, does every reason have to refer to a policy or can it refer to human common sense?
Oh, this is planning, Councillor Ward, be careful.
You do have to take it back to a planning policy or a policy in the MPPF. So yes, that's why your local plans are so important. There are generic policies about design matters and such like, and generic policies about highway matters, and we're doing our best genuinely to try and give you some words that we can work with going forward in the event of obviously any appeal or obviously in terms of taking a conversation about the site further forward. So
loss of employment plan, because I've known that pub for many, 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 many years, and no real attempt has been made to make it work as a pub. As Councillor Hill said, there has been a lack of investment there, and that's very clear when you go in there. Could I suggest, before we're snowed in, and we're still going round in ever-decreasing circles, that perhaps the officers liaise with the chairman and vice chairman of the committee to come up with, everybody knows our feelings, and we're trying to link them to policies. You know, we don't know what the current policies refer to because of the new plan, and we haven't had the list yet. So could I suggest that you liaise with the officers?
I'm quite happy to do that, and I'm sure the Vice Chair is as well. But could we just make one last attempt to see if we can get a reasons for refusal that we can all agree, because that makes it a much better refusal point at the moment. Louise, are you ready to try again?
So I've linked it back to design, because we have got policies that we can hang that off of. So I'd recommend the proposal by reason of the lack of outside space, the size and scale of the development and the intensity of the use would result in an inappropriate design contrary to policies D1 and D4 of the Waverley Borough Local Plan 2002. And there will also be policies that I can add in from the 2018 local plan as well to add to that.
Thank you very much.
I think we all feel the frustration with this one. We've had nurseries before and we've put in conditions or whatever. We have never had a site like this that basically I have not met anyone other than the applicant who thinks it's suitable for a nursery. And this is where our frustration lies, because we know it's the traffic pattern the whole time that we're not allowed to comment on, but we know that the people will be queuing for miles to get here, and when they stop there, they're going to affect the neighbours immediately. But okay, I take everything you say and we can't use it. But this is so, yes, have you? Because this is so difficult for us. It's about the last place I think we'd choose to put a nursery for young children. It's as simple as that as well. Councillor McLeod, do you want to finish us off?
Thank you, Chair. Just one final point. Pretty well all the points I made have been dealt with apart from one, and there may be no value in it, but don't we think that the amount of noise from 80 children in this very small space, that's a change of use, will have some effect on the neighbours, particularly the neighbour who lives on the right-hand side. He's going to have 80 children making all this noise just beside his house. Is there any value in that point at all from a planning point of view?
Can we add that in at all?
You can either add it into as another strand of the overdevelopment argument that the extensions as the lack of outside space, the intensity of the development would give rise to inappropriate design and a loss of amenity to nearby residents. So build that into your second reason for reviews. It's all just too much in layman's terms is I think what we're hearing.
It's such a constrained site that everything's going to be magnified.
So if you're happy with that, then we can certainly build that in. Can you mention noise specifically or not? Yeah.
Right, we've had a proposal for refusal. I don't think we've voted on it, have we, as such, with the conditions. So with those reasons for refusal, can I ask again, please, all those in favour of refusing this application, please show.
Unanimous.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience, officers. We are a difficult bunch at times, but we do it with the best of all possible intentions. If anybody would like to leave at this point, you're very welcome to do so. Moving on then to our final application. This is not subject to public speaking. This is item B1, WA 2017 2221, I should say, 2221. This is the erection of a dwelling following the demolition of the existing dwelling in garage as amended by plans received on the 5th of February this year and the 15th of February at 14 Short Heath Road in Farnham. And this is Jane McMullen who's going to introduce this for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The site is located in the northwestern side of Short Heath Road, which is a residential road containing large dwellings set on large plots. It is accessed via the drive, a private access also serving number 16 Short Heath Road, Servaco House and Chandler's. The existing dwelling is a large detached two-storey dwelling with detached garage to the north of the site. Some site photos. The existing house and site can be seen in all of these photographs. Photo A shows the view looking east from the drive. Photo B looks towards number 16 Short Heath Road. Photo C shows the view from the north of the site towards the existing dwelling. Photo D shows the dwelling to the north of the site. There's two of them. You can just, there's one there and there's a further one over here. Photo E looks directly at number 12 Short Heath Road. Photo F looks up from the southern boundary of the site and shows the application building on the left and neighbouring number 12 on the right. Photo G shows the view from the bottom of the drive looking north with the application site on the right of the photo. And photo H looks southwest from the existing garage and shows a relationship between number 14 and number 16 Short Heath Road. So here you can see the existing and the proposed block plans. The proposal includes a two-storey replacement dwelling with additional space in the loft, a single-storey link room with flat roof connecting the two-storey element to the garage, and the garage would also have storage in the roof. Some proposed elevations. This south elevation would front Short Heath Road. The replacement dwelling would be a two-storey dwelling with single-storey link to the side and connecting to the garage. The western elevation would face number 16 Short Heath Road. We requested more information about what it would look like behind this porch, and we received it from the agent, just French doors. The north elevation would face Cervaco House and Chandler's. The eastern elevation would face number 12. As you can see, the elements closest to the boundary would be single story and would be adjacent to a driveway and a garage at number 12. The two-story elements would be set away from the boundary, and the windows at first floor or above would be obscure glazed here and here. These are the floor plans. As you can see, it would be a 4-bedroom, well, you can't see, it's a little bit small, but it would be a 4-bedroom property, dwelling with some storage in the loft. The garage would also have some storage above. This shows the proposed replacement dwelling in the existing street scene of Short Heath Road. As you can see to the west and to the east, the dwelling would be of similar height and sort of similar size. In conclusion, officers consider that the extension would appear acceptable and therefore there would be no harmful impact on the amenities of the adjacent occupiers. The matters of principle or technical opinion are the principle of development, the impact on biodiversity, and the effect on the SPAs. The matters of judgment for councillors to consider are the impact on visual amenity and the impact on residential amenity. Please can I turn direct members to look at the update sheet. It should be noted that following the introduction of the local plan part 1, the full weight should be given to the policies in that plan now. Policy D5 referred to from the policy from 2002, it has actually been removed, so no weight should be given to that policy, so it's been removed from the conditions. This doesn't alter the officer's overall conclusions. We recommend that the proposal be in accordance with the development plan. One of the conditions has been altered, the first one, to include additional elevation details which were requested from one side of the porch and the other side of the link extension. So the updated condition is now on your update sheet. So recommendation is still for permission to be granted, subject to the amended first condition.
Thank you, Jane. And once again, Councillor Hargreaves, would you like to kick off on this one as it's your ward?
I'll try and make it brief this time. I feel very sorry for their next door neighbours because it looks like a tank if you put it next door to their perimeter. Driving up their drive, right opposite their back door is this vast tank. It's just nothing. It's horrible. It's right on their perimeter. And it will take away many of their amenities. It's awful. It's also overdevelopment of the site, and it's contrary to our Farnham Neighbourhood Plan Policy, FNP1. And I do object to this, as you obviously discovered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hargreaves. Does anybody else wish to comment on this one? Good heavens. Nobody got anything to say? Did we move? Oh, thank you, Councillor Hodge. I thought somebody else had to say something.
Sorry. Thank you, Chairman. It's the linking feature that I have a bit of an issue with, or I have to say it looks a bit like a small commercial unit rather than part of a house. And I'm not sure I'd really like to live next door to that, to be honest. Can officers tell us if it's overlooked by windows, upstairs windows or whatever from next door?
From number 12?
Yeah.
Sorry, on number 12, there are 2 windows in the western elevation. One serves a stairwell and a landing. The other serves a home office, which is dual aspect. And as a result, we did not find that there would be a harmful visual impact on their amenity.
Could I just ask a question? Because, again, I'm feeling from the first 2 speakers that we're looking at design here. You know, this is what we don't like. How much weight can we put on? We have an overarching design policy, as Councillor Hargreaves said, in the neighbourhood plan and FMP1. You know, are we allowed to turn anything down now on design, or we're not allowed to be police anymore?
Design is a matter of judgment, so you can object on design if you wish to. What I would say is that you do need to have consideration about where the public vantage points are from and frame your objections around that. Thank you.
I find that a bit difficult because it's like being told that you can murder your husband as long as you do it in a place that nobody can see you. You know, it sort of, you know, it's always troubled me that. Councillor Frost.
Thank you, Chairman. I think with this new design, it is overdevelopment on a very small site. And, you know, these rooms in the roof and rooms here that are all going to be used for storage, we've been there. And we know that's not the case. That they will be habitable rooms in the end. So let's be realistic about this. I think it's overdevelopment. I don't like the design of it, and I think it will impact on the neighbours.
Does anybody else wish to make a comment on this? Shall we move straight to the recommendation then? If, officers, do you wish to add anything?
If I could just ask what particular harm in relation to the neighbour? Is it about the visual look of the property? Fine. Okay.
Right, officers are obviously working away while we go through the vote. So let us look at the revised recommendation, which is on your update sheet. And the revised recommendation is that permission be granted subject to the amended condition 1, which is just above on the update sheet, and the existing conditions 2 to 5 on the agenda report. Could I see all those, please, in favour of granting permission?
Nope.
Unanimous again?
Yes.
Thank you very much. In which case, could I have a revised recommendation and a seconder? Councillor Nabil? I mean, Nazir? Okay, yeah. Oh, right. Right. Councillor Frost, you're proposing another recommendation?
Another recommendation that permission be refused. Overdevelopment, impact on neighbours, and anything else you can think of.
Yes, design contrary to FNP1, and I'm sure the other design policies and the new local plan.
Chairman, you have the seconder.
Yes, no. Don't worry, I'd put you down as the second, even though you came before the proposer. We're Liberty Hall here. Does anybody else wish to add anything? The officers are busy beavering away with some wording. Would you like to help us?
I would suggest the proposal, by reason of its size, scale and detailed design, would result in overdevelopment of the site that would be out of character with the surrounding area and would result in harm to the neighbours' amenity by reason of outlook, contrary to policies FMP1 and FMP16 of the Final Neighbourhood Plan, policy TD1 of the Local Plan 2018, and policies D1 and D4 of the Neighbourhood Plan.
Local plan, yes, don't worry. So we know what you say. We fully understand it, worry. Right, members, then. So we have an alternative recommendation, which is to refuse permission for the reasons that Louise has just outlined for us. Does anybody have any other burning reason they wish to put forward? In that case, can I see, please, all those in favour of refusing permission for the reasons that Louise has just articulated?
Unanimous.
Thank you very much. In which case, thank you, members. That concludes the business of the meeting. And safe journey home. I think it stopped snowing, so I think we'll all get there. Thank you very much.